and welcome to the road. There's going to be a pandemic, and all the sporting events will be shut down. And so he decides he's going to just get an island. He's going to hold fights on an island, and be like, "This is a blood sport." And I'm like, "No, but it's a holds fight on the island, and then you know, the people on the island. I don't know. I guess they're fucked or something. I don't know. The people on the island, they'll be fine. Everybody's fine. He's going to spare no expense to make sure that the fight happens. Fights go on, and that is the power of American capital and ingenuity. And they'd be like, this is just already seems like a combination of different movies, like Running Man, and so I don't know. It just seems too on the nose. You know what I mean? Like it seems like it's just not possible, or maybe overdone. But anyways, it's actually happening. Yeah, it's actually happening. The UFC is an entity that is a virtual monopoly, and Dana White as the sole sort of. I mean, listen, WME is the owner of the UFC, but for all intents and purposes, Dana White's still the captain. You know what I'm saying? Like Dana White is sort of the president under the Fertitta brothers, who got the UFC to where it is, especially with the union with Spike and the Ultimate Fighter and all that shit. And then this next move with the Reebok and the WME and the ESPN, basically big moves, big players, cementing the UFC as the dominant organization in mixed martial arts. And now cementing his place in the hearts of many martial arts fans by putting on Fight Island. Guys, I don't know. I'm hyped. I don't even care who's fighting. I don't know who's fighting. I don't know. You know what? That's the whole thing. Is that I'm not such a huge fan that I know exactly. Like I know Ferguson and Gaethje first. Ferguson and Gaethje are fighting, and Ngannou and what's his name, Rosenstrike or some shit. I don't know. Listen, that's all I know. I don't even care. Is the thing is I don't care. I don't care if they have two janitors fighting each other. Okay, I'm gonna fucking watch. This basically this Fight Island and the Biden Trump debate is going to be I don't know, two of the most watched things, at least in my mind, at least for me, two of the most watched things that I will watch. That doesn't mean anything, but perhaps you understand my enthusiasm for both those events, especially with the topic of this podcast, which I guess is it. I don't know. It is, okay. I'm gonna start with betrayal. It's not necessarily the theme of the podcast, but it's something I felt like I needed to talk about because, who's not betraying us is Dana White. Dana White is putting on those fights, goddammit. He's putting them on. You know who is betraying us? Our leaders. Maybe it's my. Every episode, I'm going to rant and rave about how our government has failed us. And at every level. No, let's just talk about, for instance, Me Too. Here we go. A man, a cis hetero man's take on Me Too. All right, you're just what we need. Well, honestly, the fucking thing's in shambles. So why not, right? I'm just thinking like, imagine this Tara Reid lady, right? Tara Reid lady is fucking fingered by Joe Biden, abused, and now all over the news it's like the very movement who was all for believe all women, Christine Kavanaugh, this and that. I don't know. Her just being like, Jesus Christ. But I mean, people are like, she's bullshitting. Is she bullshitting? I don't know. Do I believe her? I don't know. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. No, I think it needs to come out. I think it all needs to come out. They had a hearing for Kavanaugh. Seems like they should have a hearing for Biden, right? Have one for Trump. Have one for all of them. I'm not saying one should. Fuck it. Do you really believe all women? Then believe them. Unless it's just political maneuvering. Unless it's not really real. Also, imagine not just the actual victim Tara Reid, but Tara Reid, the actress who used to date Dane Cook and who was in all these movies. Remember Tara Reid? She's probably like, yeah, Joe Biden dead finger me. That'd be awesome if she came out. If both Tara Reids were like, that would actually undercut, I think, the first Tara Reid if the more famous Tara Reid came out. It's like, That wasn't her. It was me. Imagine on TikTok, Tara Reid came out with a little interpretive dance about how she was fingered by Joe Biden on the set of She's Gotta Have It, or I don't know. I don't know why. That's not a Tara Reid movie. I don't even know. I remember her face. I don't remember anything. That's what Joe Biden says. I remember her face. I don't remember fingering her. All right. I don't remember, but I remember corn pop. And he. All right. I think overall it's just that Me Too is a sham. It's a sham. It's a sham. It's a sham. Sham. They're using women as a political tool. It's also this weird like assumption that all women, there's like believe all women are the same. Women are a monolith. Trust. Have you listened to women? Do you know, like if the Views taught me anything, it's that all women agree, right, guys? Right, men? Guy, yeah. Your headphones on? Headphones on? Don't let her hear. Don't let her hear. Remember, I told you to go on her phone and fucking subscribe to my shit, all right? Remember, you still gotta do that. Still gotta. I saw a little jump in the numbers, so some of you might be doing it, might be doing it, but come on. It's a harmless, it's a victimless crime, all right? Just like Me Too, just like Joe Biden fingering Tara Reid. All right. So yeah, we've been failed. Our government has failed us. I think that I don't know. I think that something I wanted to talk about is that it isn't necessarily. I feel like all governments, right, isn't necessarily. I think the problem we have in America is binary thinking, is all or nothing thinking, this first past the gate kind of mentality. Every 4-year cycle of the red team and the blue team, Coke or Pepsi, one or the other. Is very binary. It doesn't leave a lot of room for nuance. So I think it's difficult for us to have a nuanced discussion, a nuance. I don't know, even like nuanced look at how to behave about things going on in Germany, right? This is from the Journal, guys, the Wall Street Journal. Have you ever heard of it? But it says, here's the headline. It says, local, practical, apolitical, inside Germany's successful coronavirus strategy. All right, so check it out. Germany's success in battling the coronavirus pandemic has drawn international attention. The main lessons: fight the virus locally and keep politics out of it. Germany's campaign against the virus has largely been fought by regional authorities that created and policed social distancing rules, worked with businesses to manage shutdowns and safety measures, and prepared the already robust healthcare infrastructure for the illness's onslaught. All right, so I don't need to read the whole thing to you guys. You can go look it up, or maybe you can't because you can't afford the Journal like I can. Okay, it's $1 for 2 months. It's $1 for 2 months. And after that, if I don't have the dough and cancel it, it's worth it. It's worth it. Anyways, there's a lot of graphs and shit. It's a good article. The whole point of the article is that Germany sort of had the infrastructure, first of all, healthcare infrastructure that we lack. They had it, but they also have an interesting sort of decentralized one. So it isn't exactly like a monolithic healthcare system that we think of, like the NHS or Canada's, where it's state-run. Germany has kind of gone, I guess, kind of what they're doing with the social distancing strategy is a fractioned, like a sort of localized, compartmentalized approach to things. So their healthcare, I guess there's 12 states in Germany, and they kind of go off that. So it's a form of federalism, something that we could be doing. We could be doing that, but we're not. That's okay. But I think one of the main things is that they put the politics aside. They were able to put the politics aside. Now, why the Germans, of all people, were able to put their politics aside? East and West Germany, remember, they were divided. They were commies. I think, maybe one of the things that the Germans are good at are working together for a solution. Like, we have a final solution for the coronavirus. That's not, come on, that's wrong. That's wrong, Rojan. You can't make Holocaust jokes about Germany defeating the virus. I mean, a lot of people say, okay, well, what are their numbers like? What are the numbers? So I'm going to say, here we go. Germany had 162,530 confirmed COVID-19 cases by Thursday, according to data from Johns Hopkins University, making it the world's 6th most affected country, but its death rate, both relative to the number of patients and to the country's population, is remarkably low at 6,572. This translates to 79 deaths per million inhabitants compared to 463 for Italy, 364 for France, and 191 for the United States. So basically half the cases of the United States, if you factor in the population. So you kind of equalize the population, because some places have more people than others, or whatever. So you equalize the population, and you see that they have a pretty low death rate. They haven't locked down completely, right, like China did. They haven't necessarily let it be like herd immunity or whatever, like Sweden's doing either. But they found a middle ground by working together, by doing it regionally, right? Local. Like I've been saying, if only you listen to me. No, I'm just kidding. It's not like I'm some genius who comes. I mean, it's pretty. I think that's the one thing about the failure of our government and our leaders is that on the ground, a lot of people can see what needs to be done. It's just that the power is far away. Far away. The power is far away, but it's not enough so that they're like all in their shit. You know what I mean? Like if it was China, they could come in, be authoritarian, just change it, just come in and just change it. Change it. No one would be fighting for the freedom. Or else just leave us alone. Let the individual governments, governors do what they do and coordinate instead of creating this crazy political climate where if you do something that's against what the blue team is saying we should do, then you're fucked in the election or whatever. So then you can't do that. Whatever. Everybody's like afraid of doing the wrong thing because there's an election coming up, and they don't want to I don't want to look like I'm pro-Trump or anti-Trump or pro-Trump, and it's all about Trump, centered around Trump. Everything's about Trump, and it's just like, come on, how does this help? This doesn't help us. It's only hurting us. And if anything, somebody's making a killing off of it. Okay, who's making all this money? Who's making the money? The media companies, Trump probably himself. But okay, the people who are going to make all the money normally are continuing to make the money now, and even more so because what they're doing is, they had a little crashy crash, and it makes everything cheap. There might be another crashy crash, make things cheaper. Hooray! Or what will probably happen is, a lot of people are sort of they operate under the principle that the markets are forward-looking, right? So that the crash back in March was actually pricing in the economy now, like pricing in, oh no, the devastation or whatever. Maybe. Who knows? I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily that rational per se. For me, I think it was a perfectly rational reaction to create a major panic and sell-off based on a global pandemic looming. So I think that's rational in that way, but it's also irrational in that I don't think it was like everybody in the market was like, hey, this is what we think it's going to be like later. I think it was just like people were like, they were just panicking. So I think that potential is still there, because now that we've gone through 2 months of lockdown, the economy is fucked, right? It's totally fucked. I mean, that's it. You're right. And so will the markets end up reflecting it? Will the markets continue to rally? Hopeful that once the pandemic is over, things will get better. We don't know. What a wonderful time we're living in. But anyway, why not fucking make it more complicated by throwing in politics, huh? Why not just throw in those and why not make it nakedly obvious to people that the politics is more important than principle? So this whole Me Too is just a thing we did because we lost, and then we were trying to take people out, and then Al Franken got taken out, and it went a little bit out of hand. And then now that one of our guys, the guys we want to run, is gonna get in with the Me Too, we're like, Me Too, yeah. And that's why I say, et tu, Me Too, right? Of all things, come on, betraying, you fucking, the knife in the back, right? The knife in the back of the male feminist, the knife in the back of the man who respects women, respects the women's movement. The knife in the back of it, fucking Me Too, right? You did, Brutus, Me Too. Brutus is a trans. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's fucked up, man. It's supposed to be a thing that's supposed to help people. It's supposed to be for the benefit of people. actually started by a black woman, and the whole thing was actually about black women being heard, and the whole thing got Karened. You got Karened, Karen. No, don't you dare say Karen is the K word. You don't fucking get that. You get everything. You get everything, Karen, Tara, Okay, not you, Tara, not the other Tara, the drunk one. All right, let's move on. This brings me to another article that I thought was very interesting. I've been talking about Matt Taibbi a lot. Is this what this has become? Is this just me reading articles online? I guess so. I don't know. This is just me online now doing whatever because, listen, I put out a YouTube stream now. I do a live stream when I do the podcast because I want there to be more than one thing that nobody listens to or looks at. You know what I mean? Right, that way I can see. I like live because it tells me right now that I'm live and nobody is listening or nobody's there and nobody's liking it or nobody's there, and that's fine. I'm still doing this. Okay, because this is free. It's free. I mean, not the podcast, but the YouTube. I could be ranting and raving. I could not do this podcast and just start moving on to YouTube Live because it'd be free. Okay. Anyways, speaking about the authoritarian nature of the pandemic, what we have here is this neither here nor there strategy where the government we are effectively on lockdown federally. There's a federal form of lockdown going on, but then state by state, there's a sort of fractured approach. There's no healthcare robustness that like Germany has, so that's not there either. There's no robust sort of relationship between the feds and the states and the locals and all three levels. You know what I mean? It's pretty fractured all the way. Individual politics is incredibly fractured because the media is whipping everybody up into a frenzy, and not just the media. It's like our whole culture of politics is sort of it's like a weird one where national politics is the most important thing, and nobody knows anything about local. When in reality, it's the other way around. So we have this culture of an inverted sense of importance. And everybody gets all hyped up about who's president, who's going to be president, the president, and meanwhile, the local shits, underneath them is getting taken care of. You don't even know who's running shit and fucking who's, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really matter in some way who the feds are because you need the guys at the local level to fight for you or grift you, right? Or else that's what's happening. It's a grift. Anyways, speaking of grift, speaking of authoritarianism, I wanted to talk about Matt Taibbi's latest article. You should really subscribe to Matt Taibbi on Substack. I can't remember how much it is. I pay $40 a year because I think that's a deal. But I don't know. Anyways, he's one of the better journalists out there, and his latest article is about temporary coronavirus censorship is here, maybe forever. As the COVID-19 crisis progresses, censorship programs advance amid calls for China-style control of the internet. So think about that. Think about that for a second. So because of the pandemic, what's happening is there are calls on the internet to censor information like China does, right? China just blocks it, no, firewall style, right? But who's going to make those decisions? Let's see. Earlier this week, Atlantic Magazine, fast becoming the favored media outlet for self-styled intellectual elites of the Aspen Institute type, ran an in-depth article of the problems free speech pose to American society in the coronavirus era. The headline, Internet speech will never go back to normal. In the debate over freedom versus control of the global network, China was largely correct and the US was wrong. Holy shit. Oh, what? Okay, let's just stop there for a second. This is the Atlantic, which was a progressive magazine that was like an abolitionist magazine. You know what I'm saying? That's how it started. That's how the Atlantic started. It was an abolitionist magazine. So they were anti-slavery, and now they're saying that a country that enslaves its entire population is right in the way it handled the information over a health crisis. I don't know if I need to. Do I need to keep? Okay, here's another blurb from the Atlantic. This is from the Atlantic article. Constitutional and cultural differences mean that the private sector, rather than the federal and state governments, currently take the lead in these practices, but the trend toward greater surveillance and speech control here and toward the growing involvement of government is undeniably and likely inexorable. And then Matt Taibbi says, They went on to list all the reasons that, given that we're on an inexorable path to censorship, a Chinese-style system of speech control may not be such a bad thing. In fact, they argued a benefit of the coronavirus was that it was waking us up to how, quote, technical wizardry, data centralization, and private public collaboration can do enormous public good, end quote. Perhaps, they posited, Americans could be moved to reconsider their understanding, quote unquote, of the First and Fourth Amendments as, quote, the harms from digital speech continue to grow and the social costs of a relatively open internet multiply. Okay, okay, so the basic thing they're arguing is that maybe the Constitution is bendable, suspendable. Maybe it's like the First and Fourth Amendments are like, especially in a time like this, not that important. This is the fucking Atlantic. The Atlantic that used to be about freeing slaves. I guess technically they were anti-Constitution back then. So I guess they want an amendment to the Constitution that fucking says that we shouldn't have free speech on the internet. Essentially, what they're calling for, what people are starting to call for, is control of speech on the internet in the guise of helping the public. And this Atlantic article is talking about how China is maybe the right way. Maybe that's the way. Really, that's what we should do, guys. That's what we should do. Is just let's see. You know what China did at the beginning of the crisis? They jailed all the doctors who tried to tell people about. That's how they control information. I was in China once. I was working on a movie in Shanghai. I was editing. It was 2009. It was the 30th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Okay, and I was there while it was like a July or some shit. I was there, and I remember I had a VPN or something, so I was actually seeing news about it. And then I would jump on to the Chinese internet without it, and it was like, no Tiananmen Square at all. And it's crazy. It's like, and I was like, actually, I was kind of afraid of even mentioning it, like tweeting it or whatever. Don't even fucking mention it because it's obviously, nah, you don't. There's three T's. The three T's: Tiananmen Square, Tibet, Taiwan. And that's not even, and that's the old shit. Now we got new shit. There's the U's now, the Uyghurs. There are Uyghurs in these camps, man. Told you guys about Anwar, my fucking buddy that I met, that sold me hash, and oh shit, god damn it, I keep doing this. Anwar's probably in a camp because of me. I'm sorry, man. Fuck, I use his name and everything. He didn't sell me anything. He sold me the positive ideals of Chinese communism and the glorious success of the party and how much better it is than America in a lot of ways. I think I could see that. Whew. God. Anyway, fucking R.I.P. buddy. I'm sorry. I hope your family's okay. They do 3 generations. They'll fuck. Okay, I'm sorry. He was a musician. Worked at a Xinjiang restaurant, and I won't say where, and I got some sweet hash from him, and and the hash was great. It was the best hash I ever. Apparently, he said his family had been growing it for 200 years. All right, who am I to argue with that? Who's China to argue with that? Anyways, they're fucking really racist against Uyghurs. I'll tell you that. All right, they weren't allowed to go anywhere. All right. They weren't allowed to do anything or anywhere. He couldn't even hang out anywhere. I mean, like, I tried to hang out with him and smoke hash, and fucking, he was like, all right. I told him to pick a place, and you know where he took us? He took us to another restaurant. Those are the only places those guys can hang out. Okay, and then and it's crazy because they're Chinese. I mean, they don't look Chinese. They look Middle Eastern more, and their Mandarin is bad, and so they're made fun of and all that. But that's not what we want, man. We can't have that, and that's what our intellectual class, the so-called progressives, are calling for. Right? Because they don't want Alex Jones talking about hydrochloroquine or he's talking about drink quinine. Look, it's the fucking price of freedom. They said even this. One person. All right, this is the price of freedom, right? I mean, since this is free, you can be like, oh well, you get what you pay for, and you can just sign up. But you know what I'm saying? It's like the price of freedom. Look, the price of freedom, unfortunately, is that the shittiest of the shitty must be there as well. Okay? Freedom ain't just fucking the best of the best and the thing we agree with and any of that. It doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless. Completely meaningless because that means somebody, whoever decides, can dictate what that is, and then what's bad, like the Chinese government does. And then what's bad is basically, never talked about. Doesn't even exist. Right? What if we just never talked about the Native American? What Native Americans? Right? What about slavery? What if we never talked about it? Just never. That's what some people want, right? Kind of when they take out the N word and Huckleberry Finn, huh? That's what you do. That's what you do, and that's why I'm here to say keep it in. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is a comedy podcast. I just have to, I guess. All right, here we go. Here's a quote from the article, Matt Taibbi article. Okay, H.L. Mencken once said that in America, the general average of intelligence, of knowledge, of competence, of integrity, of self-respect, of honor is so low that any man who knows his trade does not fear ghosts, has read 50 good books, and practices the common decencies, stands out brilliantly as a wart on a bald head. So basically what he's saying is that anybody who does good is a freak, some kind of freak of nature in this 1860s, 1810, no, Civil War time. Civil War, oh, back in the Civil War. Okay, he continues, Matt Taibbi continues, we have a lot of dumb people in this country, but the difference between the stupidities cherished by the idiocracy set injecting fish cleaner and the ones pushed in places like the Atlantic is that the jackasses among the expert class compound their wrongness by being so sure of themselves that they force others to go along. In other words, to combat ignorance, the scolders create a new and more virulent species of it, exclusive ignorance, focused ignorance, ignorance with staying power. The people who want to add a censorship regime to a healthcare crisis are more dangerous and more stupid by leaps and bounds than a president who tells people to inject disinfectant. It's astonishing that they don't see that. This is actually pretty interesting. I'm going to continue one more. Okay. Journalists are professional test crammers. Our job is to get an assignment on Monday morning and by Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning act like we're authorities on intellectual piracy, the civil war in Yemen, Iowa caucus procedure, the coronavirus, whatever. We actually know jack. We speed read, make a few phone calls, and in a snap, people are inviting us on television to tell millions of people what to think about the complex issues of the world. When we come to a subject cold, the job is about consulting as many people who really know their stuff as quickly as possible and sussing it out, often based on nothing more than hunches or impressions of the personalities involved, which set of explanations is most believable. Sports writers who covered the Deflategate football scandal had to do this in order to explain the ideal gas law. I had to do it to cover the subprime mortgage scandal, and reporters this past January and February had to do it when assigned to assess the coming coronavirus threat. Yikes. So, there you go. Journalists, they don't know shit. Okay? They're doing literally what we do, except they get to come out and be like, yes, this is the truth, and then when they're wrong, instead of being like, we were wrong and now the information, they go, no, we have to do, we can't, no, and which is bizarre, right? Because if you're gonna just be like, listen, there's just gonna be hucksters and just fucking, if it bleeds, it leads, and clickbait and all that. I'm okay. You gotta make money. The fucking newspapers, media, it's been decimated by the internet. I get it. You gotta compete, and you gotta fucking get those clicks. You get it. I get it. Okay? So then fucking just do that. Don't double down and be like, no, but we know more than you, and we know we're blah, 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 and we're doing, because you don't. The journalists clearly don't. I mean, look at what happened. Russiagate, the impeachment. Just look at it. What they were like. They were so sure that Trump was going to jail. He's going to be in handcuffs. He's going to jail. It's going down. He's Putin. Putin's controlling everything. Putin and blah, blah. And I don't know. It doesn't seem to be what's happening. If Putin is controlling America, why would he and Saudi Arabia, why would the Russians and the Saudi Arabia engage in the oil war they did that ends up fucking America? Why would they do that? Why not prop up? America's a puppet, what a great puppet to prop up and leech off of. Why drive everything down at what? Because driving down the price of oil, that fucks oil producing countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia. You know what I'm saying? So they got fucked. They didn't gamble on a pandemic coming and demand being cut short. You know what I'm saying? They didn't gamble on that happening, so they got fucked in that. Why the fuck would you do that? Anyways, none of this makes sense. The point of this, all right, here we go. The whole point of the article, the Taibbi article, I feel like, and the Wall Street Journal article about Germany, you know, is, I think it's twofold, right? One is that, and this is what wraps up with this whole thing, the sort of theme of betrayal that I've been talking about how we've been failed. Our leaders have failed us. Our leaders have failed us. Government has failed us. The media has failed us. Everybody who's out there is supposed to be telling us what we're supposed to do. Here, this is what, traditionally we would rely on. They failed us. Seems like because they're kind of in it for profit and gain over the public good. You know what I mean? It just seems like that. And not now, lately, because of Trump. You know what I mean? I think Trump is basically the result of the past 40 years of us doing that. We've been doing it for a while, and I think we've been putting profit before people, and that's why we are where we are at this moment. Okay? So we're at a seminal moment in time where what we really need is the truth, or people who are good at sussing it out, instead of doing it fucking over the weekend and then trying to get clicks and, like, instead of doing that, how about trying to actually find out what's going on? How about trying to interpret the data in a way that makes sense to people, but then also trying to inform them of the idea of probability, right? That all this data works on probability. Just because the graph says it's going to be here doesn't mean it's going to be there. These are all probabilistic curves. Everything is based on probability. So that means things can change. Try to get people to understand that. How? I don't know. I mean, that's not my job. We have a whole... Okay, anyway. I feel like, so the Germany thing is all about how the Germans are putting politics aside to work together to put down the fucking crisis. And their death rate is like half the United States when you factor in the population. So when you equalize the population, and they didn't have to do all the shit that we did, like destroy their economy, because they basically had the healthcare system in place, and they sort of had a system of trust between the businesses and local governments and state governments, state and the national. You know what I mean? They were all working together. And is it because they're Germans and capable of mobilizing to take on the whole world? I guess so. But you know what? Germany is now a relatively multicultural society, and more so than it used to be. They're fucking doing what they can. They're basically propping up the entire European Union. So they're doing whatever they can, and they're managing. Yeah. I don't see why we can't. We kick their asses. We can't manage it. We beat the Nazis, and we can't fucking beat coronavirus. All right. It's weird that the countries we beat in World War II are better than we are at beating COVID-19. Isn't that funny? Anyways, I guess I want to wrap it up. I want to wrap it up by talking about the death of stand-up comedy. Guys, comedy, it's over. It's over. No, I'm just kidding. It's not over. It's not over, but I think, here's the thing. 1 in 5 restaurants is going to survive after this. I mean, from this point, that's what the economic people say. They say like 1 in 5 restaurants is going to survive after this, because restaurants operate on the model of like, they barely make their money. What is it, like 5 years of a new restaurant being in the red before they make money? So, if you're a new restaurant that just opened, you're fucked. 2 months, and you owe all that fucking rent and all the vendors and all that. You're fucked. So let's just think about comedy clubs. Comedy clubs are essentially a restaurant model. They operate on drinks, food. That's how That's how the draw of the tickets, sure, I guess, but like really, it's just selling the drinks. That's why everything is a 2-drink minimum. That's their whole model. Now that model's gone. You know why? Because you need to pack a comedy club in order to make the money, because you need to sell as many drinks as possible, sell as many tickets as possible. You pack it to max capacity. But what's going to happen to max capacity now? What's going to happen? Social distancing. They might open up restaurants, but be like, only a quarter of your capacity can be filled. Whatever. It's just not sustainable. So just like 1 in 5 restaurants is going to survive, I can see less than that in terms of comedy clubs. A lot of venues. You know what I mean? Venues where you would have things like live entertainment and comedy. So there's going to be a dearth of places to do comedy, first of all. Sorry, boom, to take it out. Okay, next. Before all of this, I was talking about the comedy bubble. Before the pandemic, I was ranting and raving about there was a comedy bubble because, on my street, there was like 5 open mics. So it's very obvious that, and they were filled all the time. And I was just like, how is this sustainable? Now that bubble is burst. Okay. Some of them will make it, some of them will not. The institutions that will make it are the ones that have capital, Just like Amazon's gonna make it, right? But fucking mom and pop is not gonna make it. Their mom and pop stores are done. At least, this keeps going on. Most of them will be. And the corporations, giant corporations, have it. They got the dough to come in to basically weather the storm and then swoop in, buy all the shit when it's cheap, right? So the same thing with comedy. Yeah, Levity Live is a giant corporation. They'll probably come in and swoop in, do all that. But what about the art form? You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a demand for live entertainment, but then there's not going to be as many venues. Um, the demand for the entertainment itself is probably going to be on a slow curve as well. That curve has been flattened. As long as there's no vaccine. So that's like an 18-month thing. That thing everybody talks about is going to be 18 months till a vaccine. That's probably how long it's going to take before the majority of people are comfortable. You know what I mean? Like coming out. Especially if it's like the virus is mutating, you know what I mean? Like things can happen, second wave, whatever, all this other stuff that could possibly happen. Somebody sick from another country comes back into the United States, gets everybody sick again. Could happen, okay? So I think people will be very uncomfortable about being in a stand-up comedy type situation, right? So in some ways, I mourn this because I've been doing comedy for 9 years, and I feel like this was the year, where I was really was feeling good. I was feeling like a brown belt, like I was feeling like I could kind of do it at will. I was getting bored of sets, so I was just going up and fucking doing sets off the top of the dome, and just fucking all my jokes. Remember, I like forgotten all my jokes now. I forget all my jokes are just coming out. I was doing great talking to the crowd. I was doing great, having a great time. That's by and large done for a while. And now what's kind of replacing is a Zoom kind of thing, Zoom rooms maybe. I don't know, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same. Maybe in some levels, if that's the only game in town, that's what I gotta do, right? I mean, that's it. But beyond that, I think it's time to mourn the loss of something that was, but then also celebrate the birth of what could be. So what the fuck is gonna happen? I don't know, man. I know that podcasts, of course, as like Joe Rogan started that shit 10 years ago. Again, like this is obviously a medium that's going to survive the pandemic. It's like an individual medium. People are gonna use it when they work from home. Whatever. It's also very cheap. I don't have to like do much. Live streaming, all that stuff. But we still have the fucking problem that it's not quite live, right? It's not quite live. So I predict that it's going to be like a black market type thing going on. Clandestine social gatherings, private homes. Just, you know what I mean? Maybe tests might become ubiquitous, or maybe rich people will just run these things. Maybe Joe Rogan tests all his guests. Joe Rogan tests the guests. So you know what I'm saying? If you're rich enough, you got it. You can have it 5 minutes or something, right? You get it. It's possible. So I foresee in the meantime, perhaps there being some clandestine rooms, comedy clubs will open, but with the limited capacity, those who can make it, there will be maybe some kind of public kind of comedy that may get socially distanced people standing in a crowd outside, even though that in itself is not conducive to comedy. You know what I mean? And in a way, because of the lack of supply in that sense, the supply of a place to do it, the top comedians are the ones who are going to get all the spots. The ones that have a demand already, the ones that have a following, the ones that can get butts and seats despite the social distancing, those are the guys who are going to make it, through that first part. But then there's going to be this period of time where everything starts opening up and live shit comes back. And it could be during year 10. It could be in year 10. Year 10, 2021. I started in 2011. 2021 could be the year things start opening up. So I'm not going to give up. You know what I mean? I can't give up doing comedy. Can't give up doing stand-up. I'm going to figure out how to do it. You know what I mean? I don't know if hopefully tests get ubiquitous. Hopefully I can just go get it. Just go get it and then be fine. Okay? But what if I'm asymptomatic? What if my blood has the cure? What if... I don't know. I just know that come hell or high water, people are going to gather for live entertainment. It's just human nature. And especially once people start feeling safe. Fucking Bloods versus Crips game of election politics, and they're not helping. So I think it's up to the people. It's up to the people, as always. Just like with the Atlantic, the abolitionism, You know, that was a noble thing back in the day. Now they're trying to make us more like China, and I don't think that that's so good. But just like that, you know, there will be outlets. There will be people like Matt Taibbi, you know, people like out there who are writing the good right, fighting the good fight. You know what I'm saying? And I believe in people, right? I believe in them. I believe in you. All right. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. Please follow me on Instagram, Twitter. I'm out there, Rogin Kim, Roginkin. Please find me on the YouTube. Subscribe. Find me the podcast on Stitcher. Find it on Spotify. Find it on Apple. Find it on Google. Thank you so much for listening.